Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. Are you a goofball that loves Giant football? If so, sit back and relax. Except you, that person driving. Sit up and keep your eyes on the road. Your ears, though, can still listen as we talk about the team that both excites and frustrates us so much. And now, here are your goofball hosts, Drew and Rob.
Welcome, fellow goofballs, to Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. I am Drew, joined as always by...
I'm me. I'm Rob. Let's talk about some good old receivers.
Oh, yes, the wide receivers, not to be confused with the tight ends. That'll be the next episode. All right, guys. Again, today we're going to continue our series talking about the greatest Giants to ever put on the uniform. And today we are talking about the wide receivers. And it's an interesting group overall because, you know, you look at it, it's a team that gets a lot of glory when they do well. But at the same point, we've been a running team and a defense for most of our franchise's history here. You don't go, oh, look at the Giants throwing the ball down the field. You go, look at them sacking the quarterback. Look at them running the ball down their team's throats. But we still had some damn good receivers.
Yeah.
Had some really bad ones, too. Don't get me wrong.
There's plenty bad to go in this group.
Yeah. Look at you, Kenny Galladay.
Yeah. Worst pickup ever.
It's a tie with Nate Solder.
At least Nate Solder a little bit more, I think.
Only because he was required to. It was lack of other options. But with the prize, Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James last year, you would have seen a lot more of Kenny Galladay. Trust me.
So you're saying Kenny Galladay's on this list? Boom.
Number 10, Kenny Galladay. Oh man, I think all of the fans would revolt and just turn it off right immediately if we said that.
Let's say, should we do the biggest bust receivers?
Yeah, he would definitely be on there. He would definitely be on there. And you know what? At one point, we'll probably do a show of the greatest free agency signings and the worst free agency signings. And I think it's safe to say that Kenny Galladay would be on one of those two. And I think we all know which one. All righty, guys. So let's break right into the number 10. And in the meantime, as we get started here, I'm going to encourage anyone who wants to make a guess on who number 1 is going to be to go ahead and put it in the comments section, because I think people realize who the options are at that point. There's really 2 big options. I want to see how many people are going to agree or disagree with us. So feel free to put it right in the comments section who you think the best wide receiver to ever play for the Giants is. But let's get started with number 10. Not quite the best, but still on the list. And I got to say, there was a couple of people I looked at. This one, no, it's not Kenny Galladay. There's a couple people I looked at on this list here. And I think Rob and I discussed there was like 3 or 4 names were like, okay, how about this person? How about that person? And we settled on one guy who I think might shock some people. But when you look back on his career, it was a better career than I think some of us remember it being. And I think part of it is he got stigmatized because of where he was drafted.
Yes.
So without further ado, number 10, Ike Hilliard. I like Ike.
I like Ike. Just not in the 7th pick.
Yes, and that's the problem. The 7th overall pick of the 1997 draft. And I'm telling you right now, if he was like a 2nd or 3rd round pick, he would have been loved by the fans nonstop. He would have been like with that kind of guy that can go to the stadium and still get standing ovations. But because he was a 7th overall pick and wasn't the Pro Bowler, All-Pro kind of player that you expect out of a top 10 pick, he'll probably never get that kind of rejoicement, which is kind of sad. Yeah. Think about it. It's not his fault. He didn't ask to be drafted that high. I mean, granted, he probably wanted to be drafted high, but once he was like, no, wait to the 2nd round. I'm more of a 2nd round talent.
Don't worry about that.
But in all fairness, that's what he was. He was a 2nd round talent. So the guy played for us from 1997 to 2004. So you're talking a decent length of a career there with the New York Giants. Went on to play with the Bucks afterwards, got a ring with them, and also had a career beyond us as well. 98 games, 92 starts, 368 catches, 4,630 yards, 27 TDs. His best year was 1999. And he was partying like it's 1999. Prince
Hang
would
out,
say.
Prince.
Doing a little purple rain. He was 4 yards shy that year of 1,000 yards. That was his best year, 996 yards. And I should say there are a couple of Giants here that did not hit that number in their entire career that are on the list ahead of him because they had a longer career. They meant a little more to the franchise. I think we think that. So, I mean, it's not to say that he's a top tier talent, but Ike Hilliard was definitely a better player than I think some of us remember, including myself.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking over these stats, and I was like, all right, like, we're going to talk about another gentleman down the road here, and
a gentleman.
He had some, similar stats to the guy that's ahead of him on the list.
Yeah, and number 9 and number 10 actually is much closer than I think people want to admit.
Yeah, and we all know we love number 9.
Yes. So let's break into it. Number 9.
9.
Sterling Shepard. And we broke our rule again. We initially said we're not going to do any active players. And now this is I believe the second active player we put on the list, right? Yeah, second active player.
Barkley.
Daniel Jones. Barkley, and now Sterling Shepard. Second round pick in 2016. Played with the Giants since then. So you're talking 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. He's played 7 seasons. Who else played similar time frame? Ike Hilliard. Sterling Shepard's numbers: 75 games, 72 yards. I'm sorry, 72 yards, 72 starts.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
It feels like 72 yards some seasons as little as he plays.
72 starts. Last year, it's probably about right.
And yeah, 363 catches, 4,038 yards, 22 touchdowns. So if you look at the numbers, Ike Hilliard actually had some better numbers than Sterling Shepard. And I think the main reason why that we're going to put him at 9 as opposed to Ike Hilliard is because of what he means to the team. He's, obviously had a lot of injuries. He's got more talent overall than Ike Hilliard does, or did, I should say. On top of that, though, he's been, a leader of the younger guys who come into the locker room. He's been showing all these guys the Giant way as they come in. He's a guy who's always on the sidelines. He's made it through multiple regime changes, and they all like him. They all love him. Like, this is a guy that if he wants a job with the Giants when he retires, it'll be there waiting for him. I guarantee it.
100%. I mean, just look at him at this past season. He, towards ACL, and he's sitting there traveling to away games, just getting up and running around when this, bust a leg, getting into all these young guys' faces like, hey, this is what we got to do. He was a leader, and he shined.
Yep.
So
he may only play in like 2 games a year now, but with those 2 games, he makes his presence felt. I know.
Well, I mean, the other 15, he's on the sideline.
He's still there. All righty. Number 8. We get into a player that holds a special place in my memory. We talked about it before where I really started getting into the Giants there in like the mid-90s or so. And this was a guy that was as dependable a receiver as you could possibly get in that time frame. Chris Callaway. Another guy I've actually met before. He was actually very nice. Signed as a free agent from the Steelers in 1992. In his 2 seasons with the Steelers, he only had 378 yards. Not the most.
No.
Played with the Giants from 1992 to 1998. So he's a 90s boy. 112 games, 86 starts, 334 catches, 4,710 yards, 27 TDs.
A little different.
Yeah,
a little different
there. And on top of that, he didn't even start playing full time for the Giants. Like, he wasn't a starter until 94. So his real heyday was basically 94 to 98. In that time frame, he went 54 catches, 772 yards, and 5 TDs on average. So that's a stretch of like the Robin-esque kind of receiver. He was never going to be the Batman. I don't want to make him seem better than what he was. But what he was basically a healthy Sterling Shepard.
Yeah,
and that's a safe comparison there. And what he also was I'm telling you right now, for those who may not be old enough to remember him playing or old enough to be, watching him at all because they were, in the womb or something at that time, he was the guy who, it's third down, you need to catch. Chris Callaway was your guy. He would find a way to be open right at the sticks. He would find a way to make that clutch play when he had to. And considering he was making that clutch play with Dave Brown as his quarterback, kudos to you, Chris Callaway. Kudos to you. Because that's difficult. That's like starting a race with an anchor tied to your ankle there. That's hard. That's really difficult. Like, Dave Brown was that bad, guys. So yeah, Chris Callaway. I don't think he's remembered well enough for what he did for us, because he was never that He was never that Batman. He was always that Robin.
And like you said, he didn't have a great passer.
No, and again, that was a running team. You had Rodney Hampton running it like crazy, towards the end of his career, who was the start of Tiki Barber and all. I mean, that was not the team that you were like, oh, let's keep throwing the ball. No, you didn't want Dave Brown throwing the ball. That was the last thing you wanted. You wanted the defense with guys like Strahan and Jesse Armstead and Keith Hamilton going crazy. And you wanted to keep the offense on the field as much as possible. All righty. We got a couple of comments here. So Deb says, I'll go with Amani Toomer. That's her guess there for the top receiver. Connor says, Deborah, obviously, Amani Toomer is the man. If OBJ didn't screw things up, he could possibly been. Nix was next. Then Deb says, Homer Jones. And then Connor says, glad he didn't say Ike Turner. Smack my head. Hate that guy. Love Ike Hilliard. He made some great catches. Then he says, Stephen Baker, the touchdown maker. Which, Baker was not on the list, but I'll give you that right off the bat. Deb says Kyle Rote, which we'll may talk about further on down the line here. All righty, number 7. A name that nobody's listed yet. I'm kind of shocked that no one's listed this guy yet. This is a guy who had a very short time period with the New York Giants. But in that short time period,
he was a shooting star.
He was a shooting star. I think that's safe to say. He was, yes, I think he was, just a club unto himself as a shooting star. Plaxico Burress signed with the Giants as a free agent in 2005. Played with the Giants 05 to 08. Keep in mind, he only played like a little less than half a season, if I remember right, there in 2008, because that's when he shot himself in the foot, literally.
Was it the foot or was his leg? I thought it was his leg.
It was his leg, I know. But way to kill the joke, Rob, with your facts.
Knowledge.
Damn it. Fooled by knowledge and truth again.
Just got excited at the club and he couldn't keep his peace at rest.
I think the story was, and I didn't look this part up for this episode, but I remember the story correctly. He had the gun in his pants, and he didn't actually have it holstered. He just had it down his pants. And it fell and went off when it fell down his leg.
I don't remember if it was just in his pants. I thought it was in his pocket. Maybe he got a little close, in the dance club. Things got a little frictiony, and
you'd find me in the club shooting off my leg. I don't remember that part. If anybody else remembers that, feel free to enter in the comments section there what's going on as far as that part. But yeah, I mean, if he didn't have that happen, that's a guy that easily could have been much higher on this list here.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what he meant to the little bit of time he was with us was huge. But the problem is, when you think about it, he basically played 3 seasons with us. It's hard to put somebody very high up on the list. If anything, being number 7 on the list when you only played basically 3 seasons, I think that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, he had a great career with the Giants.
Yeah.
I have to say, I did get a throwback jersey, the red one, which ironically was the same year he shot himself.
I heard his pants were red that night too.
Yeah.
All righty. So in his time with the Giants, 57 games, 55 starts, 244 catches, 3,681 yards, 33 touchdowns. Now, the first thing that really stuck out to me, obviously his yards and his catches were less than a lot of the guys we've already talked about. But they also played like twice the amount of years practically as he did. The big thing is we just had 33 touchdowns. So remember, Chris Callaway, 27. Sterling Shepard, 22. Ike Hiller, 27. He had 33 touchdowns at like half the time these guys that had like 25.
He averaged about 0.6 touchdowns a game.
Yeah.
In his 55 starts.
So in his 3 years, his 3 full years he had with the Giants, in that time frame, he averaged 70 catches, 1,076 yards, 10 touchdowns per season. To give you guys a range of what a typical season from him as a Giant was. That's pretty impressive. That really is. In that time frame, he had the 5th most receiving touchdowns in the NFL. He also had the 16th most yards in the NFL. So he was an average number 1 basically as far as yards go, but elite as far as scoring. And yeah, I'll tell you, Eli Manning liked him some Plaxico Burress.
Hell, DJ would like some Plaxico Burress right now.
I still disagree with that because that's Kenny Golladay, basically, like that kind of player. Jones likes the quick guys that get the yak. He doesn't like the guys who jump up and get the ball. That's my whole issue with the Hopkins talk still. It's not a fit.
Well, is it Galladay's not a fit because his play style or because his mentality?
I think there is. Uh-oh. Guys, we have an announcement to make here. We have an announcement to make. Are you ready? Are you ready? Yes, breaking news. The one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, John S. Anderson Jr. in the house.
Slow clap. He's back.
He says that there can be only one, the return of John S. Anderson Jr. What up, my G-Men family? Big Blue Wrecking Crew. Amani Toomer, the best wide receiver ever. The original Mr. Toe Drag Swag. Yeah, good to have you back, John. Been a while since we've seen him on the comment section, so I know he's been watching afterwards. He's been commenting to us there, but yeah, definitely good to see you again, man. All righty. So anyway, Plaxico Burress. Let's be honest, we may not win that championship without Plaxico Burress. Like everybody wants to give the credit in 2007 to the amazing catch, obviously the helmet catch with David Tyree. That we're lucky, basically, let's be honest, we're lucky the refs didn't call the play because I thought Eli was about to go down. Yeah, I thought they were going to call the whistle to protect him. And thank God they swallowed their whistle like a good ref should do on the playoffs and let the play go. But in the end, the touchdown that sealed the victory went to Plaxico Burress.
I mean, let's be real. Like, look how well he played that whole season. Without him, we aren't showing up to the dance.
And you could even say what happened in 2008. We were on a tear. For those who might not remember, maybe a little too young to remember, 2008 was the best I have ever seen the Giants play regular season-wise in the last 30 years. It was that good of a season for us. And then all of a sudden, Plaxico Burress shoots himself in the leg and
shoots the team.
He shot the whole team in the leg, basically. That was not the same team afterwards. We lost in the first round to the Philadelphia Eagles, as much as it pains to say. Yes.
I was at the game.
And I mean, that was like we were thinking like a repeat Super Bowl victory. That's how good the team was playing. It just wasn't the same after him, man. It wasn't the same. And we didn't get a receiver to replace him for a couple years. Probably 2009.
Ooh, good segue.
Oh, yes. It would have been the time we got him. But obviously, it takes a year or so to get a player going. And number 6 is that guy who eventually replaced Plaxico Burress as our number 1 receiver, Hakeem Nicks. And I'll say, I think some people are probably expecting him to be a little higher on the list. But the issue really with him was his length of his career, which isn't his fault, obviously. That was injuries. It's not like he shot himself in the leg like some moron.
Wow.
Shots fired in multiple ways. So Hakeem Nicks, 29th overall pick in 2009. Played with the Giants from 2009, 2014. Played for the Colts in 14. Came back to the Giants in 2015. At that point, though, he was not the same player. Let's be honest here. He had a couple of stellar seasons. And then from there, just wasn't the same guy again. 76 games, 61 starts, 356 catches, 4,676 yards, 27 touchdowns. 2-time 1,000-yard seasons. 1-time Super Bowl champ, obviously, as well. He was there with the 2011, the second miraculous Eli Manning season there. So very similar overall to Plaxico Burress, I thought, in the fact that he had the limited time with the team and everything. But because he spent a little more time with the team overall, we're talking 3.5 years to, a stretch of 6 years, but, a lot of injuries in those 6 years.
Yeah.
Basically what put, I think, Nicks over Plaxico Burress in the end. Just the time frame. They're both amazing players, both number 1, wide receivers for the Giants, both integral parts of the New York Giants Super Bowl seasons that we had there with Eli Manning.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference is Keem had about 1,000 more yards as a Giant, but he also had 5 less touchdowns. So it could be a flip of a coin, if you will. But
yeah,
the time and the tenure.
That's what it boils down to. It boils down to that. And I'm sorry, but as much as I like Plaxico Burress as a player, I got to say stupid mistake that potentially cost us rank number 5.
Yeah.
You could easily say that.
So. I mean, and like you said, if he didn't shoot himself in the foot, leg, wherever, he could have been a lot higher in this list.
Yep. All righty. As John chimes in with, when we talk about Plaxico, he said, notice how like our faces are like gone practically because John's writing his books here. John's like, I miss coming on. Here you go. Here's a whole paragraph. He's like, but then he had to shoot himself, and the stupid governor stuck him in jail to get his name in the paper. Still remember that joke, governor or mayor? I forget what he was. I remember him saying, "Are you down with JPP?" It sounded, well, no, we're not going there. Not that's anything wrong with. Oh my God, John. John's back with the vengeance. But yeah, I mean,
shots fired.
He broke the law. You break the law, you go to jail. That's what happens. I mean,
you can't have an unregistered gun in New York.
Yeah, well, he had an expired Florida gun license, but I can tell you, living in Florida, they'll give anybody a gun. They don't care. You literally take an online, not an online, but in-person course that you can buy through Groupon. And I've literally heard people go to these things, and there's people that don't speak English that still pass the English exam because the instructor will fill it out for them. That's Florida for you. That's Florida. All righty. Guess what it is? Guess what? We're on to the final 5. I don't know. It's not dancing time, Rob. It's not dancing time.
Damn. But it can be.
But with number 5, now it's dancing time. Yeah. Number 5, Victor Cruz. Undrafted free agent 2010. Played with the Giants from 2010 to 2016. Overall, his career, 70 games, 53 catches. 53 starts. 53 catches.
Yeah, it's about to say.
You tell it's been a rough day at work, right? 53 starts, 303 catches, 4,549 yards, 25 touchdowns from 2011 to 2013. So we're talking a 3-year stretch here. He averaged 80 catches, 1,208 yards, and 8 touchdowns per season. He had the 6th most receiving yards in the NFL in that time. One-time AP second-team All-Pro. That's 2011. One-time Pro Bowler in 2012, which just shows you how weird the Pro Bowl is. I make the Pro Bowl when I'm not one of the second-team All-Pro, but I get second-team All-Pro, and I somehow don't make the Pro Bowl. 2011 NFL's PFWA's Most Improved Player Award as well. So keep in mind, 11, he just came on like a vengeance. He looked good in preseason, got a little bit of time in a couple of games in 2010, but nothing major. And then all of a sudden, 2011 just took the freaking whole entire city of New York by storm.
By the salsa dance.
Yes, still holds the Giants record. I guess it would be an NFL record as well, with the longest reception at 99 yards. So that's not easy to do. It's not often you start the ball at the 1 yard line and get a touchdown.
Yeah.
that's not something normal. As John says, cruise salsa time. And then he instructs Roberto to bust out that salsa dancing. He's already doing it. He's already doing this.
Victor Cruz is way better at it.
He really is. No offense, Rob.
Not taken.
Plus, you did not score a touchdown. You can't do that.
Touche.
Oh, yes. And Victor Cruz probably holds the second best touchdown celebration of the people on this list. We're going to get to number 1 here shortly. So a little foreshadowing. Oh, yes.
Ooh.
As I spike the punch here to let you guys know what's going on. But yeah, I mean, Victor Cruz, such a short career. Again, another guy. And it's funny, as we're looking over this list, I'm like, we keep talking about running backs have a very short shelf life. How many New York Giants are we talking about with a short life as a receiver position?
Oh, so many. Just like we said at the beginning, like this has always been a defensive run-heavy team that when it came to quarterback play and wide receiver, we could kind of.
But look at the guys like Victor Cruz, Hakeem Nicks. We can get to somebody else in a moment here that had a shorter career because of injuries as well. Sterling Shepard, with all the injury issues he's had. You're already talking. We've talked, so far now about 6 of the 10 players, and 4 of them have had injury issues that ended their careers early. I mean, that's a pretty damn high percentage. It makes you wonder, like, are we talking about receivers as being dependable when we shouldn't be? It begs the conversation. It does.
Yeah,
all righty. But I'll tell you who was dependable. Number 4, Kyle Rote. First overall pick in 1951. We're going old school now. Oh, yes. Talking he played over 70 years ago. It's not often you get to a list like this and you have a guy that played 70 years ago still be this high in the list. Played with the Giants from 1951 to 1961. So overall 11 years. In that time frame, 121 games, 92 starts. Keep in mind, they did not have the same amount of games back then. 300 catches, 4,797 yards, 48 touchdowns. Now, he also started his first 2 years as a running back, but switched to wide receiver because of issues with his knees. So as a running back, he had 231 rushing attempts, 871 yards, and 4 touchdowns. As a receiver, though, he was a 4-time Pro Bowler, 1-time AP, second-team All-Pro. He also threw 20 times in his New York Giant career.
Just like they used to.
In 20 times of throws, he had 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Talk about a boom or bust as a right. 25% of his passes ended up in a touchdown or an interception. That's pretty crazy. He he also still holds a NCAA record, the longest punt ever in the Cotton Bowl, which does still go on the Cotton Bowl. So he was a punter also in college. So this like you said, they don't make him like they used. This guy played all over the field, running back, wide receiver, quarterback, punter. You don't care. Kick returner. I'll do whatever I got to do.
And then the defensive took field, he lit up his cob pipe.
Yeah. So now, when he retired, again, 1961, we're talking, he was the Giants' leader in catches, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. So, yeah, pretty good career overall. And when he retired, he went right from being a star player to the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants in 62 and 63. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Career. Yeah, there's not many people that go right to coaching as the OC. Could you imagine? Like Davis Webb went to become the quarterback coach, obviously, for the Denver Broncos this offseason after retiring as a Giant here. Could you imagine him being hired by the Giants to be the new OC if he lost Mike Kafka? That would never have happened. Would never have happened. Just tells you the difference in how times change. Times are changing. But Kyle, actually, you remember we talked about him earlier this year. He just got entered into the New York Giants Ring of Honor this offseason as well. His past offseason, not this one, I'm sorry, the previous one. So, yeah, he's definitely a person that you still hear in Giants lore. A guy who had one hell of a career. Obviously, they had the NFL championship as well in his time frame there. The last one they had in the 50s. Played along some great players, too. We've already talked about some of the people like Charlie Connery, Frank Gifford, people like that. And you still talk about Kyle. You still talk about him as being one of the greats of that generation. It just was that good of a team back then. So, and the ironic thing was the reason he was actually brought on is because at the time, the Giants were known as having a stellar defense, and they thought they needed, a very good offensive weapon overall to go ahead and compete with some of the better teams. Like, it's going to sound weird to say, the Cleveland Browns were back then.
Oh, yeah.
The last time the Cleveland Browns were considered a good team, but
pretty much.
Let's see here. I got a couple comments from John. He goes, hopefully the new grass, no, not marijuana, Drew Roberto, LOL. Or should I say turf keeps the injuries away? We can definitely help that for sure. And then John says, 1961, I was still an itch in my dad's balls. Okay. All righty. We're going to move right along with that comment there. Number 3. This is a player that I feel like, as somebody who didn't grow up watching him, because he played obviously before Rob and my time here, I feel like I was an itch. Yeah, we're talking about the itch part there. That's before our itch, that's for sure. I feel like this is a player that you hear mentioned, but you don't really hear a lot about what he did mention, if that makes sense. I don't know. Would you agree on that one, Rob?
Yeah, it's a fair statement.
Yeah, like you hear the name and you go, okay, yeah, I know him. He played for the Giants. But you didn't hear a lot about him overall. So we're going to educate you guys a little bit who may not have known this player, may not have been old enough to watch him play. Homer Jones, who I'm telling you right now, people talk about old players that couldn't play in modern times. Homer Jones could have. He was that good. 20th round pick. I didn't say overall. 20th round pick in 1963. Drafted by the Oilers in the AFL as well. Because keep in mind, at that point, there was 2 drafts. And he did play his first year with the Houston Oilers. Then he went on to play for the Giants from 1964 to 1969. Was traded to the Browns. And then played 1 year with them, but didn't play much that year. In his time with the Giants, 73 games, 55 starts, 214 catches, 4,845 yards, 35 touchdowns. His average from 1965 to 1969, which was his major years there, 42 catches, 953 yards, 7 touchdowns. We're talking about the late 60s, guys. Like, that'd be
Back when we used to
impressive
run the ball.
nowadays. Yeah. Like, they would do like 2-yard passes to the flat and just, hope to get 4 out of it. Like, that's the way the offense is played back then. Homer Jones was definitely a different type of player and way ahead of his time. So in that time frame from 65 to 69, so you're talking a good 5-year stretch there. It's not 1 or 2 seasons, a 5-year stretch, which is almost 2 NFL careers. Keep in mind the average NFL player only plays for like 3 years. He had the 4th most yards in the NFL in that time frame. 2-time Pro Bowler, 3-time 1,000-yard season guy. 2nd team All-Pro in 1967 when he led the NFL in receiving TDs. Now, here's probably one reason that you guys should probably know who this man is. Beyond the fact that he's a Giant, beyond the fact that he was a hell of a player, which we'll get to that more in a moment there, he's also given credit for inventing the spike. The same play that you still see receivers now just spiking the ball in the end zone. The very first man to do it. Homer Jones for the New York Giants.
He said, "Kapua!"
And it's interesting because you think about all the stuff the Giants did, like, Phil Simms being the first person to say, I'm going to Disneyland, the fans chanting defense. That was a Giant thing as well. Spiking the ball. Something you're talking, this man started playing, 60 years ago?
Yeah.
It's still being done today. Now, the funny thing is, the way he told the story that I saw on a YouTube video about it is he wanted to go ahead and throw the ball into the stands. But then he remembered that if he went to do that and did, it was a $500 fine from the NFL. They made that change that offseason. So he thought about it midway through and just dropped the ball instead. He didn't mean it as a spike to the ground. He just went ahead and stopped himself from getting a $500 fine. But people liked it. People liked it. And 60 years later, here they are still spiking the ball in the end zone. So I think it's kind of an interesting part of NFL history. Another thing that the Giants are known for starting there, the spike of the football. So you don't really hear talked about very much there, but somebody had to be the first. Spike. And it was Homer Jones was the first. And I'm telling you, again, guys, this guy could play nowadays and still be good. Like, I was trying to look up his 40 time. They didn't have a 40 time for him back then. They didn't do it back then.
I was about to say,
if you watch the tape, though, and I watched a lot of tape in this man, if he was the deepest guy in the field, you might as well just not even try to chase him down. Nobody was catching up to him. He actually got credit for beating who was considered a very famous Olympic track star later on in his career when he was still in college. He was a track star there in college as well. So, I mean, like, this man was fast beyond fast for this time. Speed that would probably still hold up today. He was that fast. Another nugget of interestingness, I thought.
Ooh.
Guess what college he went to? Not a college you think of very often for players. Texas Southern. Now, who else went to Texas Southern? That name sounds familiar to you guys.
A big old gap.
Michael Strahan. Who would have thought the Giants would get 2 of the best players to ever put on a uniform out of Texas Southern? Not exactly the college that you have all the scouts go to. It's definitely, yeah. So, yeah, kind of interesting there. So it's almost like us getting all of the players we've interviewed from West Texas A&M like we have.
Or Duke.
No, I'm saying for us.
Yeah.
For me and you, we want to interview 2 players from the league. Yeah. Both of them are from West Texas A&M. It's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, the big thing with us that I want to make sure people realize, though, is how fast he was. I mean, the guy still holds the Giants' all-time record for yards per catch when you have over 20 catches. You're not going to include people that had like 2 catches in their career, obviously.
Yeah.
So with anybody over 20 catches, he holds the record. 22.6 yards per catch. That's pretty goddamn impressive. Like, you took a quarter of the field per
I was going
catch.
to say, you've literally taken a quarter of the field.
Yeah, a quarter of the field. And we talked about it, remember, with the
First
quarterbacks,
downs,
how back in these days, this was like the bad time period for the Giants. Like, he played with some decent quarterbacks like Fran Tarkenton, Earl Morrell, and people like that. But he played with teams that had horrible offensive lines, couldn't get much offense going overall, and he still succeeded. He still was one of the best quarterbacks of that generation. So it's impressive. It's kind of like, when we saw number 2 succeed with a team that had a horrible offensive line as well. So I'm waiting to see if anybody wants to guess who number 2 is here.
Who does number 2 work for?
The Baltimore Ravens.
Way to give it up.
Mr. Odell Beckham Jr. at number 2. And I think this is the one where some people will probably disagree with us overall, because obviously there's a lot of people that love OBJ. And I get it. Like, he was a freaking amazing player. Probably the most electric wide receiver we ever had, if you want to do it in that way.
Yeah.
But the big difference to him compared to others that, I should say one other, is the time frame he was with the team, as well as also some of his mental health issues.
On-field antics.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, that's part of it. When you're trash talking your quarterback and you're getting into fights with kicking equipment, I'm sorry, that's part of the equation. That's part of what
he almost lost that fight too.
I think he did lose it, actually. I had to ask the judges for the final count, but I think he did lose it. So Odell Beckham Jr., OBJ, 12th overall pick in 2014, played with the Giants 2014 to 2018, so just 5 seasons there. In that 5 seasons, 59 games, 56 starts, 390 catches, 5,476 yards, 44 touchdowns. In that time frame as a New York Giant, averaged 78 catches, 1,095 yards, and 9 touchdowns as a Giant, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because he basically did the same totals as Plaxico Burress. We talked about a minute ago how good Plaxico Burress was. But the difference is Plaxico Burress didn't have nearly the injury issues prior to the shooting that OBJ had. OBJ in his 5 years missed 21 games. That's a lot of games missed. I think people forget a little bit how much, even before the ACL, he was getting injured left and right.
A lot of hammy issues.
People talk about the ACL issues with him because he's had a few. He's had 2 ACL tears now in his career at post the Giants. But he had a ton of issues with the Giants as well. In his time frame with the Giants, he had the 7th most receiving yards in the NFL from 2014 to 2018. He had the 3rd most, if you want to include his 3 best years, 14 to 16, his first 3 years. It's before a lot of the major injuries happened. 3-time Pro Bowler, 4-time 1,000-yard season. He was the AP Offensive Rookie of the Year and led the league in receiving yards per game in 2014. He is the all-time Giants leader in receiving yards per game still. So, a hell of a time as a New York Giant. And, of course, you can't talk about OBJ and not talk about the plane. No, I'm kidding, not the plane. The catch. The catch. I mean, and it's funny because I couldn't even tell you off the top of my head if we won or lost the game. I'm guessing we lost it because the Cowboys do tend to beat us, let's be honest. And the Giants weren't exactly a good team back then. But you can't not think of the catch. Like, that is probably the most iconic catch in a meaningless regular season game that you'll ever come across, because it was just that acrobatic. It really was. Like, we talked about the amazing catch that Justin Jefferson had for the Vikings this year. That was to win a game. That was to keep his team as having a shot of winning the game. OBJ's was just OBJ being OBJ.
Pretty much.
That's what it was. It was just him making an amazing play to try to help make the game closer.
I mean, he also used to just practice that too, which
we're talking about practice. But I mean, amazing player there. We got a couple of comments here from Deb. She says, I do remember watching Jones when I was a kid. And then Deb also says, I can't wait to see what OBJ does in Baltimore. I'll tell you this. If you ever watched ER with George Clooney, it's kind of like that. There's a lot of hospital time frame, a lot of doctor visits. I just think he's done, honestly. It's a little, if you could have got him for like $5-10 million, it's worth the risk, but I think he's done. And Lamar, I see your question as well. I'll get to that towards the end here, so we're not breaking up the segment we're talking about here, but I will answer your question here in a minute. John says, that's because the diva wanted time off to do drugs and spread his brand. He said he'd be better than Jerry Rice, LOL, LMAO. That's a lot of laughing there, John. Guess the hair dye ruined his brain cells more than the drugs did. John's got a little pent-up frustration here. He's like, he hasn't been on the show in a while now. He's like, listen, in the end, I don't know about the drug part as far as OBJ, and I'm not going to talk about that part of it because I don't have any firsthand knowledge of it. There was always the rumors. I know there's that picture that was on with was his girlfriend or whatever, and they were supposedly some coke in the room or something when they were in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't there something like that? I think the last year he was the Giants. Something like that. I don't care, to be honest, as far as that part of it, because there's going to be players who are taking drugs. I mean, we're going to stop. We're going to stop talking about. Yeah, we're going to stop talking about the players with drugs, and let's kiss the saga of LT goodbye then, because you can't even tell the story of LT without discussing that. That's part of it. But in the end, all I care about with players is two things: do they give it their all in the field, and do they embarrass the franchise? OBJ gave it all in the field. There's no doubt about that. That man cared about how he played. I still question sometimes if he cared because of how he looked as opposed to how the team looked at times.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more of a ego than
like I said, you can definitely question that. I think it's a legitimate question, but he definitely gave his all on the field. That being said, the second half is the issue. He definitely did a lot of things that embarrassed the team. I mean, I think a lot of us also forget, if you go back and watch a lot of the tape from basically I think the game that got Tom Coughlin fired / retired, however you want to call it, because he technically retired, but he was going to get fired, was the Carolina game with OBJ when he was fighting with Josh Norman. And I'm not saying Josh Norman was a Boy Scout in that whole thing, but if you look, there was a lot of immature moments by OBJ in that. A lot of immature stuff. And like I said, Josh Norman is not innocent of that. I don't want Giant fans taking it that way. But there was a lot of things that OBJ could have walked away from in that whole instance, and he didn't. He was the instigator a lot in that stuff as far as physically. Even if he was being trash talked or whatever, that's part of the game. That's part of the game. But if he actually was able to stay healthy and get out of his own way, he could have been the biggest star to ever play for the New York Giants. Legitimately could have been.
He could
kind of a shame.
Yeah, he could have been way better just in the NFL, not even just a Giant.
Yep.
Like the numbers he was putting up.
Oh yeah.
He was his own worst enemy at the end of the day. Like if he would have stuck to his business, did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
He could have had so many more yards. Drugs, no drugs, whatever. If he took himself a little more, his health a little more in the front seat, then.
See, but I don't want to say his health because he definitely worked hard. I think part of it is just some people have a more injury-prone body. I think that's part of what it was with him. I really don't think it was anything he was doing wrong as far as that, because he took care of himself. I mean, you see the guy, he loves to do, he's that guy who loves to work out with his shirt off all the time. And also, like, what kind of physique he has. He obviously takes care of himself. He obviously does. He just has a more injury-prone body. He's also has a lighter frame and stuff like that as well. He wasn't built like his Uncle Shaq. don't know if he actually
Shaq's
calls him
big
Uncle
guy.
Shaq, but Shaq was a friend of the family, to the Beckham family. I think, didn't Shaq like room with like OBJ's father or something like that? There was some kind of relationship because OBJ's parents were both athletic stars at LSU around the same time that Shaq was there as well.
I'm not sure.
I know that part of it for a fact, but if I remember correctly, there was something like his father roommate was like the roomie with Shaq. So, like I said, I don't remember the whole part of that part. I didn't look that up. Wasn't planning on mentioning that part of it.
Uncle Shaq's here.
Oh my God, can you imagine? All right, number 1,
Do you want
Kenny
to comment?
Galladay.
Kenny Galladay. It's me. Hold on. I'm a number 1.
Oh yes, John says, preach Roberto and Drew. Oh, yes. No, obviously, number 1 is the only logical decision left at that point there. I mean, again, you can have the comments on if you think OBJ or this man, because OBJ had the better time period. He was better in that smaller amount of time. But I have to give it to the guy who pretty much is the leader in almost every single statistical category as a receiver. A guy who I grew up watching. He was just an absolute amazing player. Amani Toomer, 2nd-round pick in 1996. Guy was drafted when I was in middle school, making me feel old now.
Right.
I remember seeing this. In the end, he played from 1996 to 2008, 13-year career, guys, with the same franchise. That's hella impressive. Like, you're talking, he was there for, the Danny Cannell, Kent Graham years, to the Kerry Collins years, to the Eli Manning years, Kurt Warner. I mean, that man went through a lot of quarterbacks in those 13 years.
He got himself around.
Oh, yeah. That's why he's a wide receiver.
Hello.
Hello. In the end, they had 190 games played, 141 starts, 668 catches, 9,497 yards, 54 touchdowns, 1-time Super Bowl winner, 5-time 1,000-yard season. Interesting thing, never was a Pro Bowler. I thought that was kind of interesting, especially when you look at some of his stats. So from 99 to 03 was his heyday. And that's right around coincides when Kerry Collins got there. Like, he finally had a decent quarterback who could chuck the ball.
Yeah,
in that time frame, 75 catches, 1,146 yards, and 6 touchdowns was his average. Remember we talked about Plaxico Burress? We talked about him as far as how good he was for that time period and all. We talked about the kind of seasons that guys like Homer Jones had and all. This is better numbers. The only guy you can say has a better average number is OBJ. But if you look at OBJ's numbers, they compare very well when you look at Amani Toomer. The big difference is Amani Toomer didn't get hurt. So his per game was less, but his per season was about the same. And he did it over, like I said, he then extended that career over a 13-year time frame. So he is the all-time leader in Giants history in catches, receiving yards, and receiving TDs.
He's also playing
number 1.
Yeah, he also played 3 to 4 times longer than any other Giant receiver, just about.
Yep. So I'm saying it's just amazing career. And the crazy part about it is, I feel like you never really thought of him as like a number 1, like elite number 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't go like,
no.
We have Amani Toomer, we have an ultimate weapon. Like, you had that feeling with OBJ. You didn't have it with Amani Toomer.
He was sneaky good.
Exactly. He was that guy that you didn't even realize he was beating you until he already beat you.
Yeah, it was like you don't have 5 1,000 yard receiving yard seasons and not be good.
Oh yeah, and he was a guy that was amazing at sideline catches, was clutch. A guy that, in the end, I mean, also keep in mind he played with a couple of the guys that we got on this list as being, all-time great receivers for the Giants as well. And he had no problem holding his own with them. He played with Plaxico Burress. He played with Chris Callaway. He played with Ike Hilliard. He played with, some of the best players to ever play the wide receiver position, and still holds the records for receiving. That's pretty impressive. You kind of think about it like we talked about, Homer Jones and the time frame he played in. He was a receiving threat.
Yeah.
That was the guy. You're throwing the ball down the field, it's going to Homer Jones. When you were throwing to Amani Toomer, was it going to Ike Hilliard? Was it going to Amani Toomer? Was it going to, Jeremy Shockey, the tight end? Was it going to Plaxico Burress? Was it going to, there's so many people that you could have, looked at. But Amani Toomer was the guy who kept getting the rock over and over again. As Lamar asked, what about Jeremy Shockey? He'll be the next episode, possibly, tight end.
At the tight end.
Maybe Jeremy Shockey will make it.
Shockey.
Yep, shock to the system. But yeah, like I said, a guy that I think that outside of Giants fans may not have the same memory as far as that. Like, he's not the guy that you go, let's talk about the best receivers ever. Amani Toomer, where does he fit in? Like, no, he's not that guy. He's not Jerry Rice, T.O., Randy Moss. He's not that guy.
No.
But he is the quintessential number one wide receiver that ever played for the New York Football Giants. And he took on a lot of roles over the years. Obviously, his first year, he didn't do a whole lot necessarily. His last couple of years, he was playing second fiddle to Plaxico Burress for the most part. And he just kept on doing it and kept on rolling and never said anything if his role changed. All he cared about was how the New York Giants did. That's all he cared about.
He was a true team player.
100%. And he played, like I said, on some great teams. We talked about the Super Bowl win. Let's not forget the fact that he was also on the one Super Bowl losing team, which I know I feel like Giant fans don't give that team enough love for what they did, because there are plenty of teams that have only been to one Super Bowl ever. We're a little spoiled that we went to 5. And we went to 5, we went to 5 in the last, 37 years? My math right?
Something like that. It's just upsetting when you talk about that game against the Ravens, because we had a good season, and then
I get it. I'm just saying, I don't think the team gets enough love for what they did, because it's still impressive even just to get to the Super Bowl. And the Giants did that. And a big part of why they did was Amani Toomer. This was pre-Plaxico Burress. He was the guy. We just talked about that time frame, that it was his time frame with 99 to 2003. That was in that time frame.
We were better than 30 other teams.
Yeah, the Kerry Collins years were his prime years. So, yeah, Amani Toomer easily goes down the best wide receiver to ever play for the New York Football Giants.
Correct.
And I know we'll get some slack probably from some OBJ fans for saying that, but we're saying it anyway. Deal.
Yeah.
So Giant fans, we'll be back on for you guys Wednesday night. We're going to be discussing Rob's favorite group.
The tight ends.
The tight ends, exactly. Yes. So before we go, though, we have a couple comments that I promised I would address, because this man is all in capital letters. He clearly wants to know. Lamar Adams, the deadline is July 17th. Will Saquon Barkley get paid or not? There's some really good capital letters here. When will Barkley get paid? Smiley face glasses. Barkley will get paid the second he signs on the dotted line. That's the answer, Lamar. It's not a good one. Don't get me wrong. The Giants are not going to pay him what they were offering him to pay before. So sign at the dotted line, play the 1 year, bet on yourself, or sign whatever they're willing to offer, because that's your options.
Pretty
That's it.
much.
That's your options. There is no better option than those two. Going to hold out? Hold out, fine. You lose your year of eligibility. You don't play all year. You waste a good year. I think he will sign that dotted line for that 1-year contract, and he's going to bet on himself. Just this, my gut feeling. He's going to bet on himself, and that's probably what it's going to be. That's probably what it's going to be. As John Anderson says, still think he'll be traded, and then Lamar shines back. Here's what a 4-year, $55 million pact, $15 million per year, $24 million guaranteed signing might look like. Saquon Barkley, he's not getting that, Lamar.
Yeah, no.
He's not getting $15 million per year. The Giants were offering him 13, and they took that offer off the table. There's no way they're going to pay him $15 million a year. It's just not going to happen. Nobody got paid anywhere near that this offseason. And it wasn't like they were scrubs. There were some good running backs this year as free agents. You got the two other ones that got franchised in Josh Jacobs and what am I drawing blank? Oh yeah, Tony Pollard. You got Miles Sanders signed probably the biggest free agent deal of this offseason with the Carolina Panthers. Nobody got near this $15 million number. It's not going to happen, Lamar.
No, if anything, you're going to see like 12 million on the table, but it's going to be more guaranteed.
Here's the thing, though. The Giants don't have the money now to give him that. They don't.
Yeah.
$12 million is what he gets paid next year. I would sign him up right now for a 2-year, like $23 million contract. I'd have no problem even making it fully guaranteed and just moving on at that point.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we get him like 26 for the 2 years, but 20's guaranteed.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Either that, or he's going to get $10 million, $12 million for the next 2 years, and he's just going to get like a big signing bonus.
Yeah. John says I wouldn't go past $12 million. I wouldn't go past anywhere near that. Lamar says pay the man. McCaffrey getting paid $16 million a year. Let's Saquon Barkley get $16 million a year. That's disrespectful. $12 million. He says it's not. That's the market, Lamar.
Yeah, that's the buyer's market. That's what's out there.
Christian McCaffrey also is not getting paid $16 million a year. Keep in mind, because you're talking about with the signing bonus, the average over the contract and stuff like that. The signing bonus is gone. And you know who got rid of him? The team that didn't want to pay him that much money. And now he's with the Niners, and the Niners don't have to pay him nearly that because they didn't have to pay the signing bonus. So he had the chance to take his $13 million contract. I don't know the details. He decided it was not in his best interest. So in the end, he made what he thought was the right decision for him. I'm not going to knock him for it because I wasn't there. I don't know the full details. And in the end, Joe Shane's making what he thinks is the right move for the New York Giants. I'm going to trust in Shane. And I'm going to say there's no way in hell that he makes anywhere near the numbers that you're giving Lamar. I get it. You seem like a Saquon Barkley fan. I respect that. We're all fans of Saquon ourselves here. But first and foremost, we are fans of the New York Football Giants. That is not a sound business decision to make. It's not. Yeah. You're going to make him tied to the highest football contract for any running back when he, in the end,
he's only been healthy for half his career.
Yeah, prior to this year, we were talking about, is this the last year?
Yeah, I mean, his rookie year and this past year is his best year. So then
you could have
that for 2 years. So then he was speed up for another.
You could have the discussion of, was Saquon someone the Giants would have kept last year if his contract wasn't fully guaranteed?
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a legitimate question to ask because Joe Shane had no choice but to keep Saquon. It was the 5th-year option was already picked up. It was guaranteed. There was no reason to cut him. You get nothing out of it. So the question, like I said, is if Saquon's deal wasn't fully guaranteed last year, do you think there's a chance that the Giants would have not kept him? Considering his injury history, how bad he looked the last couple of years prior to that. So like I said, I don't think so. I don't think they would have kept him. I think there's a chance that they would have just moved on. So Lamar says 3 years, $50 million. John says if he wasn't injury prone, I would pay him. He's been hurt too much. John, even if he wasn't injury prone, I would still not pay him just because of what position he plays. Lamar says, so if you pay them at $12 million leave, pay him $15 million a year, that seems fair. No, it doesn't seem fair, Lamar.
Yeah,
it seems fair for Saquon. to make him the second highest paid running back. That to me is not a fair deal for the New York Giants. He says Josh Jacobs didn't sign his franchise tag. No, he didn't. He did not. John S. Anderson said, "What's in the cups? Coffee, water, vodka, whiskey." It gives a lot of options here. Maybe that's one drink. It's John. Is this your new mixed drink? He says,
"I've been drunk and hyper for days."
Mine, by the way, is the last of a glass of rum that I had to start because I had a lovely day at work and I needed a glass of rum before we started this, just to relax a little.
Mine's water.
Mine was some rum that I brought back from the Bahamas, my trip there. He says, oops, as I lose up for a second there. By the way, buymeacupofcoffee.com makes me wonder, what coffee do you two like best? Brand, flavor, and how do you take it? Then I'll order it this week and tell you which one I like the best. I got to be honest, John. I don't care what kind of coffee it is. I'm all about how you prepare it. My favorite cup of coffee, I have this. I'm gonna give a shout out to the Breville Company. I had the little Bambino espresso maker, and I make this nice espresso latte out of it, and it is spectacular. I couldn't care as far as what brand the espresso beans are that I use to make it, but it is spectacular. But I'll drink black coffee at work all day long. I don't care.
I was about to say, I drink black coffee. I like iced coffee, black coffee, cold brew coffee. I do like that Cuban coffee, the espresso coffee.
Ooh, yes, that is good.
I just wouldn't like the name. If it's regular coffee, I like Choco Nuts. Choco Nuts.
You love the chock full of nuts, don't you?
Oh, yeah. But have someone talk about tight ends. And also, if it's one of those mornings where I got to get going and need a lot of stuff, I do like Death Wish coffee.
Oh, I never had that one yet. Gotta try that.
It's pretty good. They also have another one called Valhalla, which is even more caffeine.
Oh, yeah.
So it's fantastic because it's going to push you to heaven. Or Valhalla.
Lamar says, let's just say Saquon Barkley goes to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Chiefs pay him. Would you be upset if they pay him what he's worth? No, I have no problem if they pay him the $10 million he's worth. I know where you're going, Lamar. You think that he's worth the $15 million. He's not worth it. It's not a position you pay that kind of money to, man. It's no disrespect to him. It's the position he plays. It is not there. I'm telling you right now that we could go ahead and get rid of Barkley. We can get a couple of running backs, and they may not do the same exact production. I'm not suggesting that. But we can get 3 or 4 running backs to give you some good production. Each of them getting paid about $1 million a year. That's $4 million. So that's $11 million less than what you want to pay Saquon Barkley. And I think the difference is not $14 million worth of difference. That's my whole point.
Yeah, well,
it's not that Saquon doesn't improve the team. It's that he doesn't improve the team that much to forego that kind of money for him. Not in a salary cap. Now, if there's no salary cap, screw it. Pay him $20 million. I couldn't give a damn. It's not my money. Pay him 30, 40. I couldn't give a damn.
But you got to finagle with the cap. And like, just look at the market. Everyone brings up McCaffrey.
Yeah.
But like, he's that
McCaffrey's contract was so good, the Panthers would have kept him.
Yeah.
Point blank. The Panthers would have kept him. You tell me one player who signs a contract and the team goes, oh, thank God we signed this running back. How did that work for the Cowboys? How did that work for the Rams? Even got the Titans now trying to trade Derrick Henry.
I was about to say,
he's on his way down.
I was going to say, what's Derrick Henry's salary?
Yeah, I have to look it up. I think it's
12.5 million.
12, 13, yeah. Is it 12.5?
No, I was just looking at it right now.
Yeah. And I have no problem paying Barkley that.
Yeah.
Not a single problem paying him that. So.
I mean, once you get a little past 13 and change, that's when I start going.
As John says, Chiefs would pay Hopkins before getting Saquon. I'll agree on that in a heartbeat. On side note, I think Saquon is listening to OBJ. He's causing this diva problem. Actually, Saquon has been working out with DeAndre Hopkins, is what I keep hearing. Because I know people are trying to link Hopkins to the Giants because of that. Hopkins is not coming to the Giants, guys. He's not coming. All righty, guys. So, like I said, we'll get off that top. We didn't mean to go into such a tirade about Barkley here, but like I said, we're not paying him that much money. Not going to happen. Like I said, we'll be back on a Wednesday night for you guys discussing the greatest tight ends ever to play for the New York Giants, the Shockies, the Bavaros, all the big names there. So, again, guys, we'll be back on then. We'll be back on Thursday night again for you guys, giving you guys update on the off-season workouts going on with the New York Giants here as they continue having them, it seems like, on a daily basis here. This is the fun time right now that's going on right now where we get to kind of look and overanalyze every single move that we hear from the media that's going there. So Thursday itself actually is even going to be an open practice for the for the New York Football Giants here. I'm listening, watching the comments as I'm talking here.
Did you hear what they said? Did you hear what they said about the practice? About Waller? He was awesome.
I heard Waller's spectacular.
Yeah, he's spectacular. He's great.
I heard it with every single article that comes out. As long as he can stay healthy, he will be. But again, guys, like I said, we'll be back there for those 2 episodes there. So keep track of us by, subscribing on YouTube, by hitting that bell, hitting that like and follow button there on your other social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. You can go on my LinkedIn profile if you want to do it that way.
Fantastic view.
It is a fantastic view because that's where we're available watching it live. So we're watching live here. If you're with us now watching us live, you already know at least one of the spots we're at. But we're at YouTube, we're at Facebook, we're at Twitter, we're on Twitch, and we're on my LinkedIn profile. We're also available, of course, afterwards on all those platforms if you care to watch afterwards. If you want to watch the video part, but you don't want to actually go ahead and live because you got work or something going on, or I don't know, a dentist appointment. I don't know. So the best way to watch it, it's like a PB Herman there. What's the secret word? So we'll be, of course, available on afterwards. Best way to watch us afterwards is watching us on YouTube because I can skip through some of the 5-minute intro and that kind of stuff for you guys. Makes it a little easier to watch. We'll be available, of course, usually about an hour or so after the live episode on every single audio platform known to man, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, iHeartRadio, all that kind of fun stuff there, guys. And of course, as always, please do share the link to anybody you think might enjoy the show. We grow by people like you sharing, and sharing is caring. Also, of course, if you're interested, as John mentioned there, of sponsoring the show here, you can go to buymeacupofcoffee.com/2giantgoofballs, and right there give you the option to go ahead and sponsor our next show. Sponsorship starts just $5 there, so we try to keep it low there because we're not trying to be those people. We're not the show that gets millions and millions and millions of views yet. Yes. Pat McAfee, eat your heart out. We're coming for you.
Snap.
Oh, yeah. We're just 1% of the way there. So, all right, guys. Again, we appreciate you guys listening in today. We'll see you all on Wednesday night. And as always, Giant fans,
go G-Man!
Go G-Man! G-Man!
Thanks for listening to 2 Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support. If you made it this long, you must have enjoyed it. So I am sure you have followed us on all the social media platforms. Of course, you have subscribed to the show on your favorite app as well and given us a top rating. Right?